So now we're going to go into a different type of session. So I'm going to welcome Ed Murphy to the stage. Ed works with me. Ed is going to facilitate a discussion with a group on their perception of youth tobacco and e-cigarette use. So we will have a conversation. So Adam Lambe is here. He's the president of the Irish Secondary School Students of Ireland. We have Roisín McArdle, youth representative. Amanda Cullen, youth worker with Foróige in North Dublin. And David Creed from North Dublin Planet Youth, which is an international evidence-based primary prevention model for substance misuse. So you're all very welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time out. And if you want to make your way on stage and take a seat, thank you.
Hi guys. So we're going to try to have this kind of like an informal conversation. So we'll try to pretend that you're all not here, and we'll pretend like we're in, you know, a nice social environment, and we're just talking about the goings on in society. And we've happened across tobacco use and e-cigarettes, and we'll see what comes out. So hold your breath. Let's go. So I guess, Adam, you're somebody who's just been through secondary school, and what I'm wondering is smoking still a big issue for young people? And if it isn't, why not?
Well, traditional tobacco, cigarettes, smoking really isn't a huge issue anymore in schools, that I think, from my experience, especially when you compare it to other countries. You know, from my experience, students, young people my age and below in Eastern Europe, in the Balkans region, stuff like that, where smoking is still very prevalent, is, you know, much worse than Ireland. So we are really progressing on the world stage in that, I think. But I think the prominence and what's even growing, from my experience, is vaping and e-cigarettes and other kind of tobacco or nicotine intake, I think. So that's, I think, where the real issue for second level students lies. But I think normal tobacco usage through traditional cigarettes is declining. The one place that I think it's still prevalent is in that kind of social spaces, like night outs, going drinking in bars. It's really social smoking is where it lies, not addictive everyday smoking. That's actually, from my experience, very, very low.
Okay, so you would think it seems to be more social than daily. Do you want to say a few words about what you've seen happening with e-cigarette use in secondary schools?
I think we can all kind of see the experience as well is in the advertising of vaping and e-cigarettes. I mean, vaping alone is very much kind of marketed towards young people in terms of the flavors, you know, watermelon, strawberry. When you walk into school bathrooms, you can smell the hit of a strawberry vape or something like that. And it does, it has that appeal to it in terms of something that is seen as less harmful, less dangerous, because it has that familiar, you know, it smells like strawberry Haribos or something like that. So very much easy to, it seems more appealing and very easy to intake. And it is especially prevalent in school bathrooms during lunch breaks and stuff like that. There is a growth in it there, and it's quite hard to crack down on as well.
And Roisín, I guess that's a nice segue over to you. So you're a young person living and socialising in Ireland now. What do you see happening with young people? And I'm kind of thinking particularly socially. So, and I'll go back to traditional tobacco use as well. Do you see routine tobacco use, daily tobacco use, or is it confined to a smaller number of people? And if you want to speak about what you're seeing going on in e-cigarettes as well, feel free.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So I suppose going off what Adam was saying, it is positive to see that there would be a lot less people my age. I'm 22 years old, and there'd be a lot less people my age that would identify as daily smokers or addicted to cigarettes, but unfortunately it has moved to more of a social setting. So on a night out, people migrate to the smoking area almost out of habit, more so than wanting to smoke. I know myself, I'm not a smoker, and I would migrate to the smoking area because that seems to be where everyone just goes to socialise, and out of that forms a habit of having a cigarette in hand. And going off what Adam said as well, the prevalence of vapes being seen as less harmful and more colourful, and particularly the branding surrounding vapes. Like, we know from previous speakers seeing how cigarettes have now been branded as dangerous, and you look at them and there's dark colours and stark warnings, and they're very scary looking towards young people, whereas you go into Deals or any of the shops that are slightly cheaper and you see bright colours and fun words and strawberry and watermelon, and it's particularly branded towards not even just younger people but people my age as well. And I suppose that then takes itself to the social scene as well, where it not only becomes an addiction, but a force of habit. People like having something in their hands. Like, I think we're all victims when we go into a bar or even a social setting, we don't know anyone. We like to have a cup of tea, or we like to have like a glass of something to kind of hold. Whereas for young people, it's become cigarettes and vapes because it's a means of talking to people. It's a means of asking someone, do they have a lighter? Or do you want a pull of this? Or do you want a pull of that? And people would pull these vapes not knowing what's inside of them, not really knowing what they're doing kind of to themselves. So I suppose kind of, going off that said, what Adam said, it is definitely moved to more of a social scene, but I would more so than addiction, it's force of habit, which is addiction in itself, I suppose.
And David, you're working in Immersing the Planet Youth data. So what are the data telling us? Does it match the experience that Adam and Roisín are describing?
Yeah, that's actually interesting that just it was mentioned what Planet Youth is. It is an Icelandic model of early intervention prevention that has been honed over 20 years. And there are 3 sites in Ireland now running this. We're at the beginning stage of it. So the beginning of Planet Youth is to do a whole population survey. So we surveyed 14 to 16-year-olds in North Dublin. So the data I'm talking about is specific to that age group. 76% of young people in that age group participated in the survey. So if I look at what the lads are saying there, again, 14 to 16-year-olds, there are only 3% of them that are daily smokers. There are 11% that have smoked in the last 30 days, and there's nearly 23 or 4% that have tried cigarettes at some point in their lives. Interestingly, those who, this is again a self-disclosure anonymous survey. So the self-disclosure of this is that they're starting their introduction to cigarettes is before they get to the age of 12. The e-cigarettes then is a different game. Just have a note here that 8%, so a little bit over 8%, are daily using vapes on a daily basis. So that's nearly 3 times more than the cigarettes. From a point of view of ever in their lifetime, you're talking about 1 in 3 in their lifetime. So one of the more concerning things that I think is their the attitude to vapes. So 2/3 would say that vapes are not harmful, or little harm or not harmful. But then when you ask them to compare it to cigarette smoking, there's nearly 70% of them say that it's more harmful, less harmful than smoking cigarettes, or cigarettes are more harmful than vaping. When asked, do young people consider that vapes are bad for their lungs, it's nearly 80% of, just looking here, it's 79% of young people said it harms your lungs. One of the big concerns, I suppose, we have coming out of that is there seems to be a lack of awareness with the young people as to what's in them, what's going on in relation to the vaping. And certainly, as the lads have said there, that the producers of these, they want that confusion. Because then it's very hard to legislate because the content varies so much. And one of the concerning things I have that we noted in relation to 23% of the young people said it would be easier to try drugs such as cannabinoids through a vaping device. So my concern will be not that young people might move to cigarette smoking, but they might start using other substances. And they're all chemicals. I mean, there is no natural substance in a vape. It's all chemical.
We might hold that thought as well about vaping and how it might change perception, young people's perceptions about traditional tobacco smoking, and we'll come back to each of you on that before we wrap up. But Amanda, you're in there and you're working with young people and you meet them. What are the challenges and most pertinent issues that you're coming across in relation to tobacco use and or e-cigarettes for them?
I think for myself, I would work with young people who are really socio-economic disadvantaged, like the ones we're seeing now. So I would work with a large member of the Roma community, members of the travelling community, and just young people who are at real risk of becoming involved in the justice system. And nearly 90 to 100% of all of my young people are vaping. They all think that they would say, oh no, we don't smoke, but we vape, it's okay. They're like, oh, but sure, they're meant for us because they're Fanta. You can get them in Coke flavour. And most alarmingly, I would work with 8-year-olds, and all of my 8-year-olds have tried vaping. So, and they're getting tokes off their brothers because the older siblings think they're okay. So if they think they're okay, they're giving them to the smaller ones. They're using cannabis through them. A lot of them would smoke cigarettes and vape. So even a lot of my young people, I would say, my older lads, I would have a group of 15, 16 to 18-year-olds, and every single one of those lads vape and smoke cigarettes. And what they would do is, you see, you can put money in together for a vape, and then you get 100 tokes on it. And sure, during COVID, they were sharing them around. And I'd be like, if nothing else, what about COVID? And they're sure, what do I know? I'm an own. So, but I'm a mother of a 14-year-old as well, and I was having a conversation with him and his friends even. And what he was saying is that, Mum, like the thing is that you can get it anywhere. You can buy them online. So like what they're doing is they're setting up their little entrepreneurial business where they're getting them in, and so they can buy them to each other. You can go into shops in Drogheda, but this is where I live. You can go in and you can get like the vape anywhere you want. You can get them off someone else. Some kids are actually picking them up off the ground and seeing if there's anything left on it. So yeah, the access to it, I think, is the biggest issue, and I think the marketing of them is a huge problem as well. And there is young people, they're looking them up, they see what's in them, and they're like, oh, but like it's a bit of cotton wool that you have a little bit of water on, you put your vape in it, and you breathe it in. It's not as bad as nicotine. Like they would be very much like, oh, we don't smoke. Smoking is disgusting with the tobacco and all of this, so we vape. So marketing has done an amazing job with my young people in particular, because they really do feel, and no matter what I say, they really do feel that it's much healthier for them and it's a better option for them.
And I suppose, and I'll put this to each of you as well. So what you're describing there, Amanda, in terms of that, particularly the younger kids thinking that tobacco use is particularly disgusting, we're starting to see evidence that there's potential for young people who vape to then later transition to conventional tobacco. Is that something that each of you would be concerned about? Is it something that you think is a thing that's happening out there in society? And then if you could pick one thing that you think Ireland should prioritise in terms of tobacco control / e-cigarette control, what would that one thing be? I might start with yourself, David, and we'll work across the panel.
Yeah, I think actually and I'm glad to see that it's in process. From a point of view of the e-cigarettes, I think that we need to legislate in relation to the sale of them. Because it's
age of sale, just to clarify.
Age of sale, because we'll never. I don't think we'll ever get to the content because the producers are too cute. There's so much vary. If you shut down one chemical, they'll do something else. So that's my big concern, and I would see more as of a gateway to other drugs. Because the cannabinoids are already in vapes and they are readily available, so it could be a gateway to that. I'm not sure about the link between the vapes and the smoking of cigarettes. I know some people do both. I know some people who have given up smoking cigarettes who still vape. And if I just look at the numbers, there's far more vaping than smoking. So it would suggest that a number of people start vaping, but they don't move on to cigarettes. So I don't know really. But I think the legislation and certainly the tax piece may be one, and there might be innovative ideas come out today as to how we might tackle lower the cigarette smoking.
Amanda?
I would agree with David. I think legislation is a key part. But yeah, but again, I'm not really 100% convinced of the link between vaping and cigarettes, because I think the advertising that we spoke of earlier, you know, like the 1 and 2 and this, I think it really has worked with the young people. My big concern is weed, because I know, particularly with the young people I would work with, those socio-economic young people, they like, there is a huge risk of them smoking weed anyway. And I think just having the ability to introduce the cannabis in the vape, I think is a huge problem. Like, but I think legislation is the key, and I think we need to look. I don't know how we do it. I don't have a magic wand, but I think we need to really look at how these things are being marketed. Like,
Okay. Adam.
Yeah, very much just wanted to echo what these two said. Really, I think the issue, I haven't seen a progression from vape to tobacco use in my circles or in my experience, but definitely the risk of different substances being used in vapes and e-cigarettes, like the cannabinoids that David was talking about. You know, people trying out different substances to put in their vapes and stuff like that. It's so easy to do because they're literally just different vials of stuff that you put in a vape that you already have and you've invested money into. So I think that is a real issue. And I think one thing to tackle or one thing to try and focus on is the advertisement. That, like, youth-centric advertising, the flavors, the colourful marketing as well, that really needs to be tackled to the same extent that was done with traditional tobacco and traditional cigarettes, and also this the point of sale as well of where these can be sold. I think we've seen personally in the past couple of years the cigarette machines leaving bars and restaurants, but they're now being replaced by disposable vapes that are sold at the bar counters and stuff so much more readily and almost as cheap as well.
And Roisín, any final thoughts?
Yeah, again, echoing what the panel have said about particularly branding. I work in marketing and public relations, so I know myself how easy it is to market something. If you want to sell something to someone, you will find a way to do it. And it's unfortunate that has happened with the colours and the flavours involved with the disposable vapes. But I also would like to go back to the importance of education, because I'm a big believer in how education can really, really change the minds of young people, because I'd like to consider myself in the bracket of young. I don't know, is 22 still young? But I'd like to consider myself in that bracket of young people are so impressionable and so malleable, and especially I've seen a rise in, I'm addicted to TikTok, and I've seen a rise in vapes being like almost glorified on TikTok, and I suppose that goes back to how young people are so impressionable in everything they consume. I think we really, really need to go back to not just school curriculums, but general education from parents, from youth workers, from anyone that kind of plays a full frontal role in young people's development. Really, really educate them on. I was told in secondary school how bad cigarettes were for you and how bad tobacco was for you and how there's poison in them and everything like that. But I was never told about vapes, and it's been 4 years since my leaving cert, so I know things have changed since then, but I really think we need to take a look at how we kind of form that curriculum and how we kind of update it to what modern kind of children need to know about and the substances that can be in vapes. So yeah, particularly branding is definitely an important one, but I wouldn't become blind to the importance of education and how we can go right back to the roots of what we're teaching kids, what we're teaching teenagers, what we're teaching 20-year-olds, and what we're teaching adults as well. Do you know, kids will look at adults doing it and they'll say, that looks fun. Do you know, so yeah, definitely the importance of education is not to be turned away from in this case, I think.
Thanks very much, Roisín, and I think that's something that's becoming evident to us as well. Anecdotally, we're getting, stories from teachers and things about the need for some initiation prevention of vaping for young people, and we've included some content in some new SPHE lessons that are, some are out there, more will be out there next year. That there is a tobacco lead into it, because we do need to do the conventional tobacco prevention stuff as well with young people, but there is an e-cigarette focus there as well, particularly in terms of getting young people to put themselves in the marketer's shoes and realise that they are actually the target, and how they might think about combating that in their own heads. So yeah, that's something that we'll be furthering as well. great to have the youth voice in the room and the people working with them. So thank you very much, guys. I think that's been really informative.